Linux is used in a multitude of places, but how do we know that things are working within boundaries and we're not under attack? Stay tuned to find out more.
You're watching IT Pro TV.
Hey there, I'm glad you came back for more GSEC, and in this episode we're going to be looking at Linux monitoring and attack detection. And well, I tell you what, Daniel, I'm just going to start here. Why would I care about worrying about a Linux system? I thought they were rock solid. I didn't have to worry about anything.
Yep, and you're absolutely right. Thanks for watching, everyone. No, I wish that was the case because that would be awesome. But unfortunately, it is not the case. The Linux operating system, the Mac operating system, and Windows, everybody has their problems or has their susceptibilities or vulnerabilities. So we have to understand what the system looks like normally so that we can find those anomalies and maybe detect an attack when it is occurring. So that's where we need to start with is what is normal, and we typically refer to this as taking a baseline, right? We figure out, we stand up in a machine, we say, okay, let's let it run for a little bit. Let's see how it normally operates. Let's monitor that. Let's keep an eye on things and see how that looks and works out so that we can get that really good idea so that if anything does occur, it will be heir apparent, right? It will be so easy to discover because that is not within the purview of our normal everyday use, right? A couple of ways we can do this is just by some simple tools that we can employ that might be installed on your system already, might not. You might have to run out and grab something that you like and works for you, but we have to use something so that we can capture that data so that we can compare subsequent data after that and look for those abnormalities. Let's start off with the network itself. Networking is something we definitely want to deal with. What's the purpose of having a computer if it's not going to connect to much? That's usually what we want. So understanding what ports and services are running on it can be real helpful with taking that baseline. This is what it should look like so that I can spot what it's not supposed to look like. Let's jump into my machine. I'm running Kali Linux. That's normally what I'm working with on my average everyday jaunt through the world. But it is Linux nonetheless, and I can do something like Nmap. Nmap will tell me what ports and services are running on this system. And if this is a brand new system, or if I've decided to start taking a baseline, this is a great way to start. So I'll Nmap, and I'll just 127.0.0.1. And if I want to, I can even record the output with a -O and put that into ports and services.txt. And I can capture that output. Hit return. There we go. It scanned the 1,000 ports. Looks like all of them are closed. So this machine isn't running any services by default for me. And that's fine. This is a workstation. Should probably not be doing a whole lot. I might have some share or something. I could be running Apache from time to time. I could start that up. But there you go. Let's contrast that with our other machine, our prod 1 machine. I'll get to that in a minute. But if I run Nmap there, and I do the same thing, 1, and then I -O to output that to ports _ services. I can't spell .txt. There we go. And this one does have some services that are running. Okay? Very cool. But now I have that output saved. I can keep that. There we go. We have ports and services right there. I can cap that file anytime I need. And it has that information waiting for me. Right? So now I've taken a baseline. I know what this machine should look like as far as the ports and services go. A great place to start. Let's move on. Let's talk about bandwidth. That was what we were looking at when we jumped over here. I was playing with that earlier. This is a service that I installed. It's called DarkStat. Actually, it was really kind of cool because I was looking for something to kind of quickly and easily tell me some bandwidth considerations. What kind of information is going on? And we can see here that we have the IP, the host name of that IP, the MAC address, how much data is going into that host, how much data is coming out of that host, and then, of course, the total. And we can see that this is being listed from, in what is that, descending order. So highest top talker there is going to be at the top, and down you go. So I can start taking a look at what does my normal network activity look like. DarkStat was a great one. Plenty of them out there, NTOP, whatever. Just find something that you think is good for your environment, get it installed, start running it, take that baseline.
And this is something that taking the baseline is going to allow us in the future to go, hey, there's some weird anomalous behavior. Let me go back into DarkStat and go, well, wait a minute, what is this service running? What if, crazy thing,
Sticking with you.
what if we go to do this baseline and the service that is the number one kind of in and out, we're like, I have no idea what that is.
That's exactly what you're looking for. That is the idea. Justin nails it on the head. Is we go, I don't recognize this. Or normally the top talkers are these devices, or these hosts, or these services. Why am I now seeing this? What's going on? Maybe it is a machine within that is trusted. It is owned by. It is our equipment. Well, I can then go in and go, well, let's take a look at that machine a little bit closer. Maybe deploy some endpoint, scan it for viruses, that kind of stuff. Maybe it's contracted some bad malware, and now it's beaconing out, and there's command and control going on. Who knows? But the fact that I know that Justin's laptop typically does not upload and download gigs of data every day, and now all of a sudden it is going to help me figure out that he's probably got a problem. It's an indicator of compromise. Maybe something worse is going on. Let's keep going here. Netstat is another easy one. You can take some good information from, like, what kind of normal connections do I have? So you can just do a netstat. I don't suggest just running netstat on Linux because it just does this. It tells you everything. But maybe that's exactly what you're looking for. Maybe you want to grab everything. You can get a little more granular. Typically, I like to run it like this, netstat. Like that, so I get all the connections using just network IPs instead of names, and we get TCP, UDP, and the process ID that it's running. I do that, and you'll notice I get a little easier to read output. You'll notice I've got some listening going on here. So port 80, and that's all IPv6 stuff. Here's IPv4. 667 is that dark stat service that's running. That's how I can see that in the browser. Port 53, that's some DNS going on right there. Port 10,000, that's Webmin. That's my web-based administration software for Linux. 3306 is my SQL. So I've got that exposed to the network so I can remotely connect to it and do administration functions there. But if I don't know that that's happening, I can't look for any anomalous activity. If I come in here and I see another port open that says established, and it's from one IP to another, and it's a TCP connection, what is that? What's going on there? So taking that information can be extremely helpful so that I can compare and contrast, look for those odd behaviors. And you'll notice that the common theme here is that I'm looking. I'm actually engaged in something that I would want to regularly perform as a duty as a security specialist, going in and going, okay, well, I've taken a baseline. This is what looks normal. Every now and then I'm going to reconfigure those baselines, take those baselines again, see how they've changed over time, archive them, and then, of course, I'm looking for anomalous activity. And if anybody alerts me to something strange, like Justin kind of alluded to earlier, things are running weird. You know, this server's having some issues. I wonder why. Let's take a look at what's going on and see if there's any difference in those baselines there. So really good stuff as well.
It's one of those things where I always, from a development standpoint, trying to be a little more security minded, I like these tools because if you're running them and I'm running them, now we have two sets of eyes on them.
Yeah.
I might just use them for debugging purposes. But then if I go, well, wait a minute, what is this? I'm probably going to go to Daniel and go, hey, so I didn't set this up. There's some weird stuff. I don't know what it is, but I'm letting you know. It kind of, I guess that's a see something, say something kind of policy. But I really like being able to know what's going on, because there's so many times where I've tried to start a service and it went, this port's already taken. I go, what? I didn't do that.
Doesn't seem right. I've run into that myself where I just was playing around with Nmap and Nmap my own system, and I was like, why is FTP on this? And I installed some software that had an FTP server built in. I didn't know that thing was being installed and running on my system. So it's a good way to discover those things.
And we've been talking about networks, right? We've been talking about bandwidth, connections, what ports are open, those type things. But also, we should be looking at utilization of resources that are not network-based, right?
That's exactly right. I got to see, what does my CPU normally look like? What kind of RAM utilization am I typically taking up? Disk utilization. These are all important things, right? These are the big four: network, disk, memory, and CPU, right? So let's jump into that. Let's take a look. There's a great tool that I have installed. Let's see here. If I go to activities and I click this guy right here, HTOP. HTOP's a phenomenal utility. Super wicked tiny here, but we'll see if we can't make that a little easier to see. It's updating in real time, right? So we have CPU utilization right here at the top. It's showing me it's, hovering around 3 to 5%. I do have a bit of memory utilization. I only have 2 gigs. It's a virtual machine running, and I'm using just over 1 gig, or just right at 1 gig of memory. So I'm about halfway there. My swap space, how healthy that looks, how many tasks are running, how many threads are running, the average load, uptime of the machine. I'll notice if there was been a reboot, if this thing was supposed to be up and running all the time, every day, right? Again, CPU and memory utilization on individual processes. Here's the process ID. All sorts of great information just from HTOP. A lot of people call it Pretty Top because it's got, top is nice, but this is a whole lot better. But we'll give you the same kind of statistics.
Yeah, top works, and typically top's going to come with most Linux distributions, right?
Yeah, top usually does. You usually will have to install HTOP if you want that better looking thing.
I'll be honest with you. Probably one of the first things I install when I'm just poking around trying to determine where do I lie? What processes are running?
Yeah.
Because not only do you have that nice little dashboard, but if you want to start filtering based on process identifiers, it actually has a pretty good search feature of show me everything that involves Python. And as long as that process ID,
right? Because
I'm well, wait a minute, I'm pretty sure I started this service. And I don't see it anywhere, and it's buried under another name, and then it'll filter those. So it has some additional features that are really nice.
It's super. Check out the man page for that thing if you install it, because it can be very helpful. Let's also show you how to look at disk utilization. DF is what I typically use. I'll just clear this out and just do DF. I always throw the -H on there for that human readable formats, as otherwise you're looking at long strings of bits and bytes, and that can get a little daunting to check out. But there we go. I'm looking at my disk. Here's dev. SDA2, which is my hard drive. I see that I'm using 43% of that hard drive. Okay, that's fine, that's healthy. Or that's just the standard. If I come in one day and I see it's at 99%, that's probably not good. I'd want to know why that had happened. And I'm going to start checking stuff out, even if I can use the system, because a lot of times when systems are using up all their disk space, they can become wicked slow. And not fun to use at that point in time. So we'd have to do something to try to maybe log into recovery mode and see what's going on. But there you go. I can keep an eye on that. Again, I can capture that data, keep it in a file, keep it safe somewhere else maybe. And then if I see something's acting funny, I can take all these statistics, compare them with baselines, and look to see where the anomaly is occurring. So it's really important for you to be able to understand how to look for this stuff and how to capture it, and how to compare and contrast.
It's one of these things where all of these tools seem to be a nice, here's a real-time update. I'd have to have I've set some baselines, maybe I recorded them, I've come back to them, oh, well, our disk is being used up, I wonder why. And you start poking around, there have been times where I went, that is a giant log file. Because I've set logging wrong, but logging's still important whenever you're trying to do monitoring and attack detection. Right?
Yeah, and we've talked about logging throughout this series, but just want to re-emphasize the importance of log files. To go there, look for it's a great way to detect an attack. And of course, with most Linux systems, it's going to be in the /var/log directory. And in there, I've got all sorts of great logs going on. Things like Apache, apt, auth.log is always a great one. So if you're looking for somebody trying to brute force into the system itself. I'm not going to belabor this part because we've been kind of through this, and it's not our first rodeo here as it comes to logging. But it is always a good reminder to say, hey, I should be checking the logs and being diligent in my monitoring activity. Make sure I set up any kind of, if I have an alert system that can tell me, hey, that log file is growing at an exponential rate, something that's outside of the norm, then I probably want to take a look at that. So there you go. Logging always, don't forget about syslog. Shovel those logs out to somewhere else. Keep it as a backup, just in case a compromise has occurred. They can't fiddle with those logs and remove all the damning entries that would be inside of there. But again, you just check that stuff out. You can cat them. I guess I'll have to sudo cats. What is this? Auth.log. There you go. And I can look for things like, hey, session open for user root by UID 0. Was that me? I don't know. I'll have to check that out, right? So if I'm seeing weird activity, that's the kind of stuff I'm going to look for. Well, I think as far as logs go, we get the idea, right? Look at logs, see weird things, do something about it.
Absolutely, and I want to reiterate, you should also ship those logs all the time because you're going to ingest those into some other systems. Those are going to help you be a little more proactive about, hey, this is weird, what's going on? Because if you're always just spot checking logs, it's really hard to find. Every once in a while you'll find something. I actually saw a directory traversal attack attempt, and I was like, well, I'm just trying to debug an app, but we should tell somebody about this. Now, we've looked at some resource utilization network, those type tools. We've looked at some logs, but are there any other tools that we should be aware of that may be helpful for just like going, hey, this looks weird?
Yeah, especially when it comes to like attack detection. It's a weird word to stay together. But one of my favorite things when it comes to tools that you can utilize is Snort. You can set up alerting and rule sets for what Snort does. It's basically a network intrusion detection system. So it'll say, hey, here are some things that you've told me to look out for, and I'm going to be on the lookout for that, and I'll mail you if things go weird. But Snort is a great tool. It is a bit complex to get set up, but once you get it up and running and you get it kind of figured out, it should be great. I'll put a cheat sheet in the learner resources for this episode so that you can kind of see how all this stuff works. But let me just kind of give you an example of how Snort can actually run. Let's take a look at its config file. I will just go here, and then I'll cat / I'll probably have to sudo this. Sudo cat etc /snort. And then here's all the files inside of the Snort directory. Snort.conf is going to be one of your big ones as well as this rules directory right around this area. And there's snort.conf. So you definitely want to check out snort.conf, which has the path to all the different rules that it's going to be looking for. So I've got like bad traffic rules, chat rules, and these are all dynamic library rules. Again, this does get a bit complex, but it's a really great tool. So I recommend trying to wrap your brain around it so that you can play around with it and deploy it into your networks. But to run it, you just need to, I guess I'll need to sudo yet again. Snort, I'm so used to working in Kali as a root, and they've taken that away now. So sad. Death to root. But I'll do a -i, and I got to do a -i. ENS33, I think, is the adapter that I'm going to be working with. And then I'll do a -x, which is going to tell it, did I write that down? I forget what -x does. Oh, well, man page that. Anyway, -x, then -a, which is to console alert messages, and tell it to do that to the console. Like that. And then, -c, which is, a little too much, -c, which is where the config file is for Snort, which is -etc -snort-snort.conf. There we go. Now I can run that. You can see it's running. It's checking things. Let's jump back over into Kali and let's ping this machine because I have a rule set up that should alert me to anybody trying to ping the device, right? So we'll ping this, ping 10.10.10.130, I believe is its IP. There you go, Control-C. And we are seeing the alert pop up right here. The enemy is pinging us, Captain. Of course, that's a custom alert. You can make it say whatever you like so that you can make them more meaningful to you. But it did its job beautifully. It saw the ping was occurring and alerted me. Again, it just does detection. I don't remember if it's able to. I want to say that it can do prevention as well. Snort's a pretty powerful set of tools, so I'll put my stamp on, yes, it can do prevention as well. Justin, you've got something.
The -x, right?
Yes, help me out with that.
It includes, Well, it's one of those things that it would be helpful. Includes raw packet data, and with the link layer,
that's it.
You see the entire packet, including the Ethernet headers and trailers,
which we did see in the output there.
Yeah.
Can't remember it all, folks. It's a lot of stuff. If you need to see the stuff later, it's logging this. I'll Control-C. I will Control-C. There we go. And you can look at some of the statistics as it puts out, but it's also in var log. So cd/var/log, and then is there a cd snort, and then there's your log files right there. To look at those log files, you need to do sudo snort-r. And then give it the log file. So if I had snort, this is 1.5, whatever. I'll go with 4. Looks good. And then you can see the log stuff in there. But there you go. You can't just nano this or cat this very easily. It comes out as weird. binary type.
Oh,
thing.
gotcha.
Yeah.
It's some kind of like
Formatting.
serialized format
Yeah.
that they're using to encapsulate all of that. And a lot of times with these more powerful tools, especially if you have a command line interface, the amount of options gets a little out of hand because you saw a few. I looked up the -X, but I tell you, there's a lot.
Yeah. No, I hopefully I have made it quite clear. Snort is complex. It's not going to be just a, hey, install and run. It's going to be a bit of working with. But once you get it going, man, the power behind it is totally worth that effort. So by stamp of approval on Snort.
All right, well, Daniel, I feel a little more capable making sure my Linux systems are all good, checking on my resources, making sure there's no exfiltration or people poking around. And, well, I'm going to have to go try some of these out, and you should as well. But for us, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. So signing off for IT Pro TV, I've been your host, Justin Dennison.
I'm Daniel Lowry.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching IT Pro TV.